Good morning. It's the morning of October 7th, 2023. It's a Saturday, and this is a day when many people in the world would be saying Shabbat Shalom to one another, a peaceful Sabbath. Unfortunately, it is not a peaceful Jewish Sabbath today because Israel is again at war. It's been attacked by Hamas. From the standpoint of Hamas, this is in retaliation to ongoing policies of Israel. From the standpoint of Israel, those policies are necessary because of ongoing attacks from Hamas and others. And so it goes on and on and on. It is a difficult situation. And frankly, I have to say that in general, I feel very comfortable with the liberals, the enlightened of all religions, of all people. I feel very distant from the hardliners, the ultra-conservatives, the fundamentalists, the true believers of all religions, those who cannot engage in constructive dialogue to find solutions. Those often seem to be the ones that are causing a lot of the trouble in the world. Well, that is just my point of view, my perspective on things. You may have a different point of view, a different perspective, and that is also okay. But for now, I want to look at some of the astrological conditions that seem to be related to this current conflict. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And I just have to take care of a few housekeeping things real quickly. So give me a second. Okay, and we're ready to go. Now, here we have a picture of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem has been described as the heart of the world. And I think that tends to be true on several different levels. Certainly, it is a place of great importance to three major religions, to Judaism, to Islam, and to Christianity. And on a personal, subjective level, I see it spiritually as the heart of the world. On these non-physical levels, my particular view of Jerusalem or perception of Jerusalem is I sense a higher spiritual energy that comes forth from it, making it truly the spiritual heart of the world. This is very subjective, uh, and what I see subjectively is not necessarily true. But this is the way I perceive it. This is the way I sense things. I feel a higher spiritual energy that comes out of Jerusalem. This is an energy that wants us to transcend, that wants to enlighten us. But as human beings, we also have hard shells that often need to be cracked uh, in order to let the light in and in order to let our own light out. And consequently, spiritual transformation, it often first involves some wounding, which then has to be followed by healing. And that means that the spiritual nature of Jerusalem, in addition to being a great light to the world, it can also bring about a great wounding to the world as a result of the hard shells that many people have erected around their own thoughts, their own minds, their own ways of doing things. having to be cracked before we can transcend. So I want to look next here at the chart for modern Israel. May 14th, 1948, 4 p.m., Tel Aviv. And Astro Databank gives this chart a Rodden rating of A. Basically, what that means is we have a reliable time for the birth of the modern state of Israel. So this should be a good chart. And there's one thing in particular I want to point out about this chart. And that is the opposition we have here between Sun at 23 degrees Taurus and Chiron at 21 plus degrees of Scorpio. Now, an opposition represents two drives that are trying to integrate with one another. The Sun usually represents the self, the center of something, the essential identity of a person, or in this case, a state. And with Sun at 23 degrees Taurus, Taurus is an earth sign. This represents a connection of Israel with the land. Taurus is ruled by Venus. This represents that desire for peace and stability within the land. Chiron, it is a drive to transcend and is very much in tune with how I was describing Jerusalem just a minute ago. Chiron urges us to transcend, but in the process, it often has to cause some wounding first. It brings about some wounding as those hard shells need to be cracked to let the light in, to let the light out. And then that wounding is followed by healing and then eventually followed by transcendence. And with Chiron in Scorpio, Scorpio has depth to it. It's profound feeling, radical transformation. At its worst, Scorpio represents strong desires that are driving people, things they have difficulty in controlling. But at its absolute best, Scorpio represents this great spiritual depth, this unlocking of the mysteries of life and the universe. So this is what is trying to be integrated with the Sun up here, with the soul of the nation of Israel. And at its best, at its very best, this helps Israel fulfill its mission to be a light unto the nations. When Israel integrates this higher drive, this drive toward this higher transcendence with its national soul, it is a light unto the nations. It brings forth great things for all the people of earth. And we see this, I think, quite strongly in the sciences. There are many great Israeli scientists and scholars of all sorts. Uh, they're not involved with politics per se, and they're bringing forth great light unto the nations. And also the arts, the great art of Israel. Now, when it comes to politics, as everyone knows, the situation is much more difficult. And this is where wounding has occurred on many levels. And this is where hardliners on both sides, on the Israeli side, on the Palestinian side, I think there are people on both sides that have done things that perpetuate the conflict. And so it goes on and on. But the point is, we see in this chart for Israel both this potential, this great potential to be a light unto the nations, uh, which does happen to a great extent. And we also see this great potential for wounding when these two drives are not properly integrated with one another. And that also happens. Israel's neighbors wound Israel, and Israel in turn wounds its neighbors, and it goes on and on. Okay, well, I want to point out this specific aspect because this delineates quite clearly Israel's ancient mission to be a light unto the nations. And it is also an aspect which is behind uh, the current conflict, the war that broke out today on October 7th, 2023. So let's look at just sort of the general transits for this day. One of the more important things to notice right here, and I have this highlighted in red, the really important stuff, the sun, transiting sun is in opposition to transiting Chiron on this day. Okay, it's not quite exact. It will be soon. We got sun at 14 plus degrees Libra, Chiron at 17 plus degrees Aries. But this is going to resonate with that Sun Chiron opposition that's in Israel's chart, which can bring about either great light or great wounding. Now, a lot of the conditions in this chart are transitory. They're not going to last all that long, but on this day, they are serving as triggers for the current conflict. So in addition to having Sun in opposition to Chiron, we also have this grand cross. We have Mars conjunct the lunar nodal axis. Pluto up here is squaring Mars and the lunar nodal axis. And just as the war broke out, we have Moon in opposition to Pluto and squaring the lunar nodal axis and Mars. And of course, Mars squaring Pluto, that always heightens the chances of war and violence and conflict within the world. Okay, well, these transits apply to the world in general, but we also have to ask ourselves, why Israel in particular? Well, one reason is given because with transing Sun in opposition to transing Chiron, this is replicating that Sun Chiron opposition that we have in the chart for modern day Israel. But let's also look at how these transits are impacting Israel in general, or in particular, let's say. And if we look at transits to Israel's natal chart, it's very interesting. The most important transit going on here is that transiting Uranus is conjunct natal Sun and in opposition to natal Chiron. And it's just, Uranus is moving retrograde. It's just gone past an exact conjunction with the Sun. And it's approaching an exact opposition to natal Chiron. It's kind of halfway in between. Okay, so this is astrologically, I think, the most important factor in this current conflict. Uranus tends to cause sudden, unexpected things to occur, and Uranus is activating that natal opposition between Sun and Chiron. And that opposition can manifest either positively as light into the nations or negatively as wounding for either Israel or others. Now, there are some other aspects that are also contributing to this conflict. In particular, we have transiting Neptune down here, making a square to both natal Jupiter and natal Uranus. Again, this is triggering some sudden unexpected events. Neptune and Pisces, that can be something done stealthily, something not plainly visible until it happens. And then we also have Jupiter, transiting Jupiter, making a pretty strong square to natal Pluto up here. Pluto represents death and transformation, among other things. Jupiter magnifies influences. So in this case, the warlike nature of Pluto is probably being magnified. So I find this all very interesting. Let me go back just a second here. When we look at Israel's natal chart, we see one of the prominent features here is that opposition between Sun and Chiron, which results in both great light unto the nations and wounding for Israel and others. When we look at just the transits by themselves, we see the Sun today is in opposition to Chiron. So that is going to resonate with Israel's chart right here. And then when we look at how these transits are specifically affecting Israel, we see the natal Sun Chiron opposition being activated by this transit from the planet Uranus, and then some other squares by outer planets also creating some tension. So, how long is this war going to last? I don't know. None of us knows. If the leaders wanted to, they could resolve everything today. If there was enough will and enough righteousness on both sides. As I often like to point out, if you write the word shalom in Hebrew, the word shalom means peace, but the middle two letters of the word shalom are lamed vav. Numerically, those letters add up to 36. And traditionally, the ancient sages of the Talmud said that this world continues to exist because of the presence at all times of at least 36 righteous people. So this number 36 in Judaism and Hebrew, it has a connection with righteousness. And with those Lamed Vav adding up to 36 being the middle two letters of the word shalom for peace, that tells me that you can't really have true peace unless you have a sufficient amount of righteousness on both sides. That is what we need. If there were that amount of righteousness on both sides, not just one side, not lacking on each side, but present on both sides, we can have peace pretty quickly. If we don't have that, things could last longer. So I don't know how long the war is going to last, how long this conflict will last, but I do know how long some astrological conditions that are related to the tensions out there right now can last. And if people do not follow their higher natures, this conflict could last for quite a while. So here are some of the things to pay attention to. It seems like this war is triggered primarily by transiting Uranus in conjunction with natal Sun and in opposition to natal Chiron. This opposition of transiting Uranus to natal Chiron, it's growing in strength and it doesn't become exact until November 5th. So one scenario is that this could be the peak of the conflict, and then maybe things lessen after that. We also have transiting Jupiter making an exact square to Pluto on October 17th, and transiting Mars making an exact square to natal moon in Israel's chart on October 18th. So October 17th, 18th, those could be some critical days in this conflict. And then we have a variety of transits, hard transits by Mars, which may exacerbate things. Exact on the 30th of October is transiting Mars square natal Pluto. That's very warlike. On the 1st of November, we have transiting Mars conjunct that lunar nodal axis that intensifies aggression. On the 5th, when transiting Uranus will be in opposition to natal Chiron, we also have transiting Mars square natal Saturn. That is not a good combination. Either one of these aspects creates greater tension. So things might really get set off on November 5th. On the 12th, we have transiting Mars conjunct natal Chiron. And on the 15th, we have transiting Mars in opposition to the natal Sun. And on the 22nd of November, we have transiting Mars square natal Mars. Okay, so there are a lot of things, a lot of aspects we'll see in October and November, which could continue to exacerbate things. Like all or most people in this world, I hope this conflict ends soon. I hope the loss of life and property on both sides is minimized as soon as possible. But there is a potential out there for this to unfortunately last longer. And a couple of dates in which things could be particularly tense are the 17th and the 18th of October, and also November 5th. Okay, November 5th, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is also going to be the date of the third quarter moon. And just as new moons and full moons represent times of greater intensity, both traditionally and with some results from statistical studies. And modern science have shown that first quarter and third quarter moons are also tend to be times of some instability when more accidents of various sorts can occur, more negative issues. So let's keep an eye on those dates, October 17th and 18th and November 5th. They have a greater potential for some negative things to happen on those days, but let us also do what we can individually and collectively to help bring about peace and resolution to conflict as soon as possible. Let's, on the spiritual level, visualize peace and light surrounding the situation, breaking up the darkness. On a physical level, do what you can to pursue and promote peace. And in some instances, this may amount to uh, providing food and shelter for the victims of war. Okay, I'm going to stop at this point, stop my screen sharing, and I'm back. As I said at the beginning, this is a very difficult situation. This is not the peace of Shabbat, the peace of the Sabbath that we all wanted to wake up to. But let us hope and pray that the leaders on both sides uh, pursue a path to peace, a path to wholeness, and a path to resolving tensions. Things are quite difficult right now, but it's never too early to plant seeds for peace, for a better future. And so with that, I'll stop recording. I'll say so long, be well, and let us all pray for peace and think about ways, visualize ways in which we can bring peace and wholeness to the world, not only for Israel, not only for Palestinian people, but also with regard to the situation involving Ukraine and Russia. Let us all work together to make this a better world. And even though these are dark times, let us plant seeds for peace. So long, be well.